Hello and welcome back to Sexuality After. Today I'm here with Anna Graybill and I'm so excited to have her on because we have been in the same mastermind group for over a year now, and she always has so much to share and her energy is amazing and electric, and I know you're just going to love her and love what she has to share. She's so open and colorful. So if you just want to talk about kind of who you are and what you do and where you're at right now.
Okay. Thank you. That was such a sweet introduction. Oh my gosh. I'm excited to be here. So, like you said, I am also a coach. I coach people in sex and pleasure. I work with both individuals and couples using tantra. So It's really, I love talking about sex. I'm really like helping people to just get what they want, whatever that is. You know, feel like they're living their most authentic, most like rich, vibrant, pleasureful life.
Yes.
And that's what I try to do for myself too.
That's awesome. I love it. That's two areas that you differ from me, is that you work A, with couples, and B, with tantra. Yeah. It was a little bit different path than I took. So that's awesome to have you on. Okay. So let's talk about where you started in life and what you were raised with around your relationship with your body, your sex, your sexuality, etc.
Okay. Yeah. So I grew up in Idaho and my family was super Mormon. And Mormons are like, kind of regular Christian folks who believe that sex before marriage is like second to murder. It's so bad that like you don't want to go there. That if you masturbate, you're like, I think that was super forbidden.
Yeah.
And also I felt like, especially as a teenager, that there was this expectation that boys were super sexual and that girls were the ones that always had to say no. Yeah. That we're always the ones putting the brakes on everything. Totally. And that girls didn't really have pleasure. Like girls didn't really want to masturbate. That was something that the boys did. And had to like be careful with, Yeah. Yeah, that was my upbringing. Like sex wasn't really talked about. Like my parents didn't, like it was pretty minimal.
Yeah.
The conversations around sex, except that you just weren't supposed to do it.
Yeah. A lot of the messaging I got about sex was also indirect, and a lot of it was about what I wore and how it's like always my responsibility to like not turn guys on or I don't know. It was very insidious.
That's a good word. Just goes through everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Mormons definitely, they want to keep your shoulders covered. Like that's really bad to like show some shoulder or.
Oh my God. Like horrible. Yeah. I wasn't allowed to wear anything sleeveless because like my delts are so sexy.
They are pretty sexy.
So sexy. Yeah. Okay, cool. So that was, it's a little bit similar to the way I was raised for sure. And also very straight. Yeah.
Yes.
I don't even know when I learned that like girls could be with girls or boys could be with boys. Like, I don't even know, but it was probably a lot later than I would want to admit.
Not talked about.
Yeah.
I had a little bit of, my mom's side of the family was very liberal. So I was very lucky to have other role models that showed different relationships. My grandmother in the last part of her life lived with a woman and had like a really strong relationship. And this woman became the matriarch of the family. after my grandmother passed. And then I have an aunt who's also a lesbian. So I had pretty good role models. I had but that really showed me the contrast too of what I was experiencing with my Mormon upbringing, which I loved.
Yeah.
That's the hard part. Like, if you love it, if it's like your whole world, then you want to do those things.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not going to try masturbating because I didn't want to. I mean, I didn't really masturbate very much.
Totally. So if you loved it so much, what started the shift? Like, what started your shift away from that? Or when did you start believing different things?
Mm-hmm. So I did have like this liberal, this more progressive side. And then I had this more conservative side. So I was always kind of weaving between the two. And the first Mormon belief that I really was like, I don't think I can really deal with this was that there's only one true church, that they have like a monopoly on all truth and everybody else is like wandering around in the darkness or whatever.
Yeah.
So that was the first thing that went for me. And I started exploring other traditions and really like being like, oh, there's a lot in common. Like we all kind of want the same things out of life.
Yeah.
And that really expanded me out. And then another huge thing was I knew that my beloved grandmother and auntie, I knew that they weren't doing anything wrong. I knew that was totally normal. I mean, I knew that not everybody was doing it and that like the Mormons thought it was bad. But I also knew that like I love them and they were good people.
Yeah.
Are still, my auntie's still around.
Nice. Is that kind of what created the space around this is the one true way? Was that you saw them and you were like, well, they can't be going to hell? Or what was it? Because that was a really big sticking point for me.
I think that could have been it. And I think also I'm just adventurous at heart and mystical. Like, I don't think I could believe in a higher power that is only going to give inspiration to some people in some places at some time.
So it might have been partly your personality.
That's too small.
It's ridiculous, but yes. When you're in it, it seems normal.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I love that. Okay, so mostly seeing your grandmother and her partner and also the one true way. Okay, so how old were you when you started searching out other things and then saying, maybe this isn't totally for me?
So that's an interesting question because I kind of felt like I was always searching, like from the time that I don't know, like being a teenager, you know, like I felt like I had a very conscious commitment to my Mormonism, and it never, like, my parents didn't really like shove it down my throat. So like I had this like that was kind of like a home base, and then I would explore other things. I would take like little side trips and fool around with somebody for a few weeks and then repent and come back to my Mormonism or like
right.
So it just like I couldn't resist trying new things. And I had opportunities, like people wanted to play around or anyway. So like I was always on this, like, it was kind of like a binge purge sort of cycle.
Totally.
And the binging just got like more and more dramatic. But I didn't actually leave Mormonism until after I had a kid.
Yeah. Okay.
So I did all the Mormon things of like getting married in the temple and not having sex with that person until the wedding night. And then having a baby. And then I was like, whoa, what happened? Where am I now?
Yeah,
that was my big wake up point.
Yeah, that can make you wake up for sure. Okay, so you like fooled around with people, but you never actually had sex until you were married?
No, I had sex.
Okay. So would you feel comfortable talking about that, like the first time, and then how did it feel, and what were your beliefs around it when you were having sex and that kind of stuff?
So I think it's really interesting to talk about, what is sex? Because I think a lot of times, especially as a queer person, I'm, primarily sexually involved with women right now. Yeah. Like there's so much emphasis on penis and vagina sex.
Totally.
As being like the time. And so when you take that out of the equation, then when you had sex is kind of harder to demark as like a starting point.
Yeah.
So mostly I would say in my teenage years, I felt pretty uncomfortable with any genital touch. Like I felt like guys were always like putting my hand on their penis. And I was just like, I don't want that. Or they were like trying to get their hands down my pants.
Yeah.
So I was pretty much like, no. Unless like, I don't know, like once I spent a couple weeks at my cousin's house and I ended up like sleeping with this guy the whole time. And he was actually really nice and respectful.
Yeah.
And he totally ate me out, went down on me. And I was like, oh, this is interesting.
Yeah.
And then when I got back home, I went back to my regular life and like talked to my bishop and did all those weird Mormon things.
Yeah.
So like I had like little bubbles where I'd be like, okay, this is happening. I'm just going to enjoy it.
Yeah.
And so I would enjoy it in the moment for the most part. And that's kind of hard.
Yeah.
When you have this conscious, like, I am choosing to sin right now. And it takes away. Let's get off on that, I guess.
Right.
But yeah, so I would take little breaks.
Yeah.
Mostly with people that weren't in my day-to-day life.
Yep. So again, bouncing between your liberal self and your more conservative self. And then when you came back to your conservative self, did you feel super guilty?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Super guilty. I remember, I don't know if it was that same, I like went a whole month without bathing because I just wanted to like feel this disgust with myself. And my hair was like, I was kind of a hippie too. So, and I did swim in some lakes during that period, but like, I was just like reveling in the grossness of the sin and like really like, I think part of me didn't feel bad. And so I had to like create it. I had to like perform this guilt and shame in order to get to the other side of being forgiven.
Yeah.
Which I totally felt strongly. And I felt like I had this clean slate. And I try and be really good for a year or a few months or whatever. But once I crossed that line into sinning, I was kind of like, well, here we are. Might as well enjoy it because we already messed up. It's already bad. We're already going to have to go through this huge repentance process and, pray and fast and like make yourself feel awful. So
let's get the most out of it while we can. Yeah, that's similar to my experience as well. Yes, I did a very similar thing. Cool. Okay. So tell me about when you got married and you had like, penetrative penis and vagina sex for the kind of first time. Did it feel okay? Or did you how did you feel about it? And then, how did sex impact your marriage in that way? The beliefs that you were raised with.
So I actually had penis and vagina sex before I got married.
Oh yeah, that's right. Sorry. Yeah.
And that was like my longest break of like my longest detour, which was about 2 years. And this lover was pretty wonderful. Like they really adored me and really took a lot of time with my pleasure. And for the most part, like I did like surrender to that pleasure and had a good time. I mean, I feel bad for him in some ways because I was really mean because of that shame.
Yeah.
You know, like I did feel guilty. So I'd have these like, I was a little bit, I don't know, I'd kind of attack him a little bit for not caring about the same things that I cared about.
Yeah. Like he wasn't conservative enough.
No, he didn't. He was a humanist. He was a Sufi humanist. And he didn't feel any shame about his pleasure. And so I felt that, you know, I love the Sufi poets and this idea of sex being something that's spiritual, something sacred, the idea that your lover could be divine. It's amazing. And I let myself feel that.
Yeah.
And then when I broke up with him, I was terrified of sex because it was so powerful and I liked it so much that I got super religious and super focused on getting married.
Yeah.
And I found this really cool Mormon guy. And I wouldn't even make out with him because I was so afraid. I was like afraid if I made out with somebody, then we would have sex and then I wouldn't be able to get married in the temple, which was supposed to be the key to a happy life. You know, all the good things.
Yeah.
So I was really afraid. And yeah. And so I dated him for we dated for 3 months, got engaged and got married 3 months later. So 6-month engagement. And that I think that not kissing him, not even making out with him, that's probably my biggest regret because that was ridiculous.
Like, it's impressive, actually.
It's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. I tried that so many times and no, I could not have lasted 6 months. That's crazy.
It's crazy. Well, what really happened to me is that I ended up with somebody who had a totally different libido than me.
Yeah.
Like that's how we went 6 months. And that didn't surface right away. You know, the sex was really good for the first few years. And then it became really clear that we had totally different needs.
Yeah.
Especially as, you know, life gets more challenging.
That does complicate things.
Yeah.
So then you had a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And then how did that shift your beliefs?
So I think having a kid, well, the Mormons make so many promises. They're like, if you follow our rules, then your life is going to be like rainbows and unicorns, you know, like everything is going to be good. So I'd followed all the rules at that point. So I think I really allowed myself to look at Mormonism with clear vision. And that's when I started to wake up. I was like, shit, this is what it's like being a woman. I wanted to have a baby more than anything. I wanted to be a mother. I always wanted to be like the super mother that stayed home, maybe homeschooled, cooked all the food. You know, I wanted that. That was what I envisioned for my life.
Yeah. And
then when I had it, I was kind of like, ooh, this is drudgery. This is a big fat lie. This is not the rainbows and like ever never ending delight. This is a lot of work. And I don't know, I was kind of stuck there.
It wasn't as fulfilling as you had expected.
Even though like I love my kid, and it was beautiful,
yeah,
but also it was really limiting.
Yeah.
And I started really studying feminism, and I started really studying about Mormon history. And I was like, oh, this is bad. I started like really exploring gender. My partner at the time was exploring his gender. My kid's going to walk through right now.
Okay.
Oh, give you my phone. Here you go. Sorry. That was a really good part too. That's the one. That's the kid that started it all. Yeah. So after my baby was born, my husband started exploring his gender, which was pretty hot and amazing because he hadn't allowed himself that. And so our sex became really playful. And that's really when we broke out of kind of the heterosexual box. And
what did you guys like start to explore that? Like, how at the same time? And also, like, apparently he was also Mormon.
Yeah, he was totally Mormon.
Like, conservative. So what was the point where you're like, oh, let's totally do something anti-Mormon and play with our genders together? Like, what?
Yeah.
How?
Well, I think that my soul was really hungering to be with somebody that was open, was adventurous, could think for themselves, and didn't really believe in all this gender sexuality bullshit. And he was all those things. And he never really felt manly. And he would wear his sister's clothes when, the house was empty. So he was doing that in secret long before he met me. And he didn't tell me until after we were married. And when he first started talking about wearing pantyhose, that was like his favorite clothing item. I was like, oh, I don't think we should do that. Because I was super Mormon. And I was like, no. And I kind of like, I didn't hardcore shame him, but I wasn't open to it.
Yeah.
I felt like it was dangerous.
Yep.
And someplace we shouldn't go.
Yep.
But after the baby, you're not supposed to have penetrative sex, until you're healed. If you have a vaginal birth. And all that breastfeeding, I was super horny.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was willing to do anything. And the pantyhose, like, it wasn't penetrative sex anymore, but we were both super turned on.
Yeah.
And it was super fun.
Totally.
And it was a huge turning point in our sexual relationship.
So you were so horny that you're willing to get over your judgments and play.
Yeah, totally. And I was also like reading the feminism, feeling the disillusionment of motherhood too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely not something people talk about enough.
Yeah.
Is motherhood in like a real way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you started playing in sex more and learning your own mind about things, thinking more for yourself and about your place like in the world. And your place in a family, maybe.
Totally.
And as a woman, what it meant to be a woman. Because what you were taught about what it meant to be a woman sucked.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Okay, then what?
Well, we did that for a long time. Like, we were together for 15 years. We had 2 more kids.
Mm-hmm.
We totally left the church together. It was a mutual exploration together. He kind of had his things. I had my things. We had some similar things. It was pretty special to have support. A lot of people lose their relationship when they leave the church.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, it becomes a rift or, a point of conflict.
It's pretty rare when both of you are kind of at the same point of leaving at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. And then it was just a slow unfolding. I started really finding my own spirituality. That was the first piece for me. Like, I started praying to a goddess, and I feminized everything for years.
Nice.
And started going to like goddess ceremonies, and the more I explored that, the more I realized, wow, I'm really turned on by women.
Yeah.
Which I knew, like, I identified as being bisexual before I even got married, but exploring being with women was so forbidden. I knew that as a Mormon, I couldn't be, have that like perfect life if I fell in love with a woman. And since I was also attracted to men, I was like, well, I'm not even going to go there. I'm not going to open that can of worms. I'm not going to like look behind that door, any of it. I just like too dangerous, too scary, not going there.
Yeah. And then?
Well, you cannot go there, right?
You cannot go there. No.
Yeah. Well, it just got louder and louder and louder until I was like, let's be polyamorous.
And how did that conversation go?
Well, I had a crush on somebody for a long time. And of course, they were like, not in the same town, but we just spent the weekend together, and I was like, oh my gosh, I think this person they're non-binary, so I'm going to use they, them pronouns for this person. Wow, I think there might be a possibility there. And so I came home from a trip at like a clothing optional hot spring where I'd like been totally turned on all weekend. And I was like, I have to explore this. I have to see if this is even a possibility. And Ryan, my partner, was, he saw that it was something important to me. And even though it scared the shit out of him, he was like, we can do this. And then it was a whole nother adventure.
Yeah.
Of being non-monogamous.
Yeah.
Which was pretty amazing. Kind of a hard transition for sure.
A hard transition as an individual or as a couple?
As a couple.
Mm-hmm. And he was as well? Like, he also saw other people?
Yes, he did. He saw, he's like, wow, because he'd only been with me. And he's like, well, yeah, I'd like to have more experience too.
Yeah.
And we were non-monogamous together for a year. And he decided that he didn't want to be non-monogamous anymore. Yeah. And I knew that I couldn't go back. Yeah. And I was in love with somebody else, a woman. And I just knew that I couldn't not explore that. And so that was the end of our romantic entanglement together.
Yeah. Through this whole thing of non-monogamy and exploring women, did you still have some old beliefs surface, or was that kind of all a thing of the past by then?
Ooh, there's definitely things that still come up. Like, it's like there's these little tendrils, like little like roots, and it's almost like amusing because it's like, oh wow, I found another one. poking me in the ass.
Yeah.
Like, let's get rid of that.
Yeah.
So things like how much pleasure are you going to allow yourself to have?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's possible? And really, for me, one of my biggest fears, being non-monogamous, I'm still polyamorous. My biggest fear is always hurting somebody else.
Yeah.
And that is, it can get so tricky, because how do you know if you're going to hurt somebody? You need to have some sort of structure, some sort of philosophical structure of good and bad, or things that aren't right, to judge whether or not something is a problem. Anyway, so that definitely is like a tie back into the Mormon belief system.
Yeah.
That I still play with.
Yeah. The not wanting to hurt somebody else.
Yeah.
Mm.
And of course, that's totally reasonable. Like, I don't want to be a jerk.
It is, totally. I get why that would be more of a fear, although, I mean, everybody hurts everybody. Like, we're all humans. And, like, a lot of people hurt their monogamous partners a lot.
Yeah.
Like, hurt happens in monogamy plenty.
Totally.
So,
yeah.
But it's a different, maybe it's just because it's kind of a different playing field.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's like,
and you can't really stop hurting anybody.
No. Like, you can do your best to communicate and be honest, but everybody has their own stuff too.
Yeah.
I was going to say, it also, because it's more of a new concept in our culture, there's not really as many rules for it. And yet the monogamy rules are very assumed, and everybody has different ideas of what those are. So I don't know that monogamy rules really help people not hurt each other in monogamous relationships. Does that make sense?
Totally.
So I don't think that's really helpful. Like, in any relationship, you kind of have to figure out what your rules are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And just be transparent about them.
Mm-hmm. And really, when you're really afraid of hurting someone, you're kind of protecting them from life. And that's kind of a shitty thing to do to your partner. Like, treat them like they can't handle their own emotions, or like you have to manage their experience for them.
Totally. And then you're also not being authentic. Like, you act differently when you're trying to protect somebody from something that you think is going to hurt them, but you don't know is going to hurt them. And then it's so messy.
So messy.
But we all do that. We all have this. I mean, I think we're all like good people at our core, right? Like, we don't, it's not nice. It's not like fun to hurt somebody else.
No.
So I get that. And it's coming from a really beautiful place. It just has to be balanced with also knowing that they are responsible for themselves and they're a resilient human being and they can handle life too.
Yep. Yeah.
If you figure out that balance, let me know.
Steph and I are doing it. It's my partner now, Stephanie. She's amazing. Like, she is so strong, and we put so much energy into our communication and really listening and going deep, but also trusting one another.
Yeah.
That we can handle our own emotions and trusting each other's best intentions.
How much of that is that you both take responsibility for yourselves and you're
That's
like
definitely
conscious of taking responsibility for yourselves?
That's a huge part. Huge.
So I know that helps Neil and I a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And the other person can even say, like, do you think that's partly your stuff? And they're like, yeah, it's definitely partly my stuff.
Yeah.
So let's figure out what's your stuff and what's my stuff here.
Mm-hmm. Cut through those projections
Yeah.
and illusions.
Yeah, totally. So how is life different now in your sexuality, in your relationship with your body too, or the amount of pleasure or joy or bliss that you experience compared to 25 years ago?
Oh boy. Well, I feel like, the pleasure is just continues to expand and grow. There's some like peaks and valleys.
Yeah.
It's not totally a straight line, the growth, but I have way more pleasure. Like even the best pleasure is, I don't know, it just feels like it's always getting better. And since I've been so dedicated to exploring, like I've got so many more tools.
Yeah, totally.
So much more, like so many more resources.
Like what? Like give me some examples.
Just Tantra is amazing. Like yesterday, Steph and I were doing this breathwork process, and we were just breathing into the chakras, feeling like pleasure. We were sounding, and we completed this amazing breathwork process, and my body felt so turned on. Like I just felt like so like awake.
Yeah.
Like all of my sensory nerve endings were just like lit up.
Yeah.
And Steph and I, we were next to each other and we were kind of integrating together. And I took her hand and I put it on my pussy because I was just like so turned on. And I just like had this amazing, energetic orgasm.
What? That's so
yes.
cool.
So cool.
What did an energy orgasm feel like?
I felt, so I generated so much energy with the breath work, right? So it was like this vibration, but I also felt like the contractions in my pussy. Like I feel like, shivers, like moving through my body, that warmth, like expanding and circulating through my whole body.
Yeah.
I felt all that. And I was so fully clothed, like she wasn't moving her hand at all. It was just like, knowing that was her hand on my pussy, really. Yeah. Like, just like, blew it all so out of the water. It was amazing.
I love it.
Yeah.
So Tantra has been your biggest tool recently.
Totally.
Cool. It's easy to, especially in different times of your life, I guess, to get stuck in ruts and not explore new things, like always masturbate the same way or always have sex the same way instead of being playful with it, And when you do, you're like, oh, I can orgasm this way, and this feels amazing. And what inside of my elbow feels good? What the hell? Like, you just learn all these different things that you never knew before. And that's how it expands your capacity for pleasure.
Totally.
Or you discover your capacity for pleasure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
A little bit of both. That's cool. I'm excited for you with this new tool of yours. And what did I want to ask? I don't know how to really say what I'm trying to say. Like kind of how has that been impacted by your decision to be polyamorous and to leave the church and kind of becoming more and more who you are? I find like the more that I become who I really am, who I truly am and not who other people say I am or should be, the more I am just open to and can experience pleasure and joy and bliss on a day-to-day basis.
Mm-hmm.
And then also when I do have sex with somebody else or with myself, it's just magnified because I'm coming as an authentic person and I'm not trying to be, and that includes coming with, like my shame or like all the messy parts of how we feel too, or the shadowy parts. Like,
Mm-hmm.
actually, this is really complicated, or I feel complicated about this, or I, feel upset with you. Like even getting clear about all the messy parts and the shadow parts helps you to become lighter and interact. It's more like, I'm doing a terrible job explaining this, but it's not like it's happy, happy, joy, joy all the time, but you're more authentic. And so everything is more full, like including your pleasure and your sex life with yourself and others.
I totally get that. I absolutely experienced that. Like the first thing that I noticed as I was leaving the church was the huge amount of energy that I spent trying to reconcile everything.
Yes.
Trying to maintain this worldview that didn't make sense to me. That was a huge energetic burden.
Yes.
And once I let go of that, then I'm able to like look at things at face value and be like, oh, how do I feel about that? Oh, that doesn't make any sense. Or, oh, that's the most amazing thing ever. So that was really the first step in authenticity, is not having to like connect all the dots, not having to like make things that I knew in my body make sense in this framework.
Yeah. And even just the energy that it takes to put yourself in a mold.
Mm-hmm. Huge amounts of energy.
Huge. You wouldn't think. Like you would think it takes less energy to expand.
Mm-mm.
But it doesn't.
We want to expand. Expanding is our natural state. And when you put yourself in that mold, you're like cutting those parts off that are continuing to grow. Like they're like always reaching out and you have to like hold it back all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. As I have been expanding and exploring my own sexuality through the last few years, I find that, you know how we talk about layers, like you get to deeper and deeper layers of the onion, and sometimes it's a similar sticky belief and it kind of comes up in different ways, like shame, for example, or like sex is dangerous. That's a big one for me that I was taught growing up that kind of comes up in new and different ways. I think of it more as the more we expand ourselves, we like bump up against new layers of conditioning that have been put there. Mm-hmm. And so I think of it more as like expanding into new layers. And then if I want to expand past this layer, like I have to work through it. And then I come up against a new layer of repression and then I have to like move past that. And a lot of times it's similar messaging.
Mm-hmm.
Have you found that? And if so, what has been kind of your stickiest belief, like something that still comes up?
Totally. We're expanding out of centuries of patriarchy.
Yeah.
Like there are layers and layers of what we're allowed to experience.
Yeah.
It's interesting having children. Like what are you going to teach your children? What's acceptable for your children to know? Like that's challenging. I mean, you don't want to be seen as like this irresponsible parent, and you want to give your kids good boundaries. But you also like want them to be their fullest expansive self.
So you find that coming up a lot because you were taught, like you were raised in a very controlled environment where this was okay and this was not okay to teach your kids, and this was where the line was, and trying to navigate that as a mom.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. That happens already, but my kid's only 4, so it's about some things, but it's not about the deeper issues, right? That you would be dealing with.
I don't know. I think even at 4, they have questions about their bodies and other people's bodies. Like, I've wanted to be more open than my family was. You know, I don't want my kids to be getting their information off of Google or, you know, whatever. I want them to have good information.
Yeah.
And I want them to know that they can come to me and that I'll be straight with them.
Yeah.
And I won't like make up some fantastical story or.
Yeah. Can you talk about one of the most recent things that you've questioned? Like, should I teach them this or should I teach them that? Because this is what I was taught, but that's not what I want to teach my kids.
Mm-hmm. Well, like little things, like I have a 12-year-old daughter and she loves makeup. You know, she loves to coordinate her eyeliner with her outfit and be really fabulous.
Yeah.
And there's part of me that's like, you're only 12. You can't do that.
Right.
Like that's sending some sort of message. And I like cut that part. Like I don't go there because it's her creativity.
Yeah.
You know, it's her like enjoyment of her own beauty. And I don't want to push that back or sexualize her before she's 12. I don't think she's thinking about, you know, attracting someone, or I think she's really artistic and she wants to play with her makeup and that I think that should be encouraged.
Yeah. Absolutely. I can see how that would be challenging for you though. Do Mormons wear makeup?
Yeah.
Okay. We weren't allowed to wear makeup growing up, so
Mormons wear a lot of makeup.
Okay.
But I think people want their kids to wear makeup later.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. I've never been very good at makeup. So it's not really part of my personal beauty regime.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's like she likes to wear like shirts that show off her belly, and you know, Mormons are totally against all that stuff.
Yeah. And then it's asking, what kind of message do we think makeup sends and why? Right. And why like certain colors more than other colors? Like, I don't know. It's all very interesting.
So random.
Or even just calling attention to yourself by doing cool makeup stuff.
Yeah.
Is that okay? Is that not okay? I was definitely taught that it wasn't okay. But I think it's okay now. You just have to be aware of the attention that you're bringing, right?
Yeah. And she'll figure that out. She's really smart. And she's not going into places where she's not safe.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't even know how many times a day parents have these kind of moments where they have to decide. Like, we're just deciding all the time where the lines are, and we don't know.
No.
And maybe it's just different for every parent and every child and every parent-child relationship too.
Yeah, that's the parent's responsibility. Like when you have big dogma and everything's all spelled out, then you do have some security. You're like, oh, if I do these things, I'm a good parent.
Yeah.
My kid's going to be okay. I'm giving my kid the best chance. But when you take your own authority, then you have to like know how how to feel out your own truth and find your confidence to be like, yes, I am making good decisions. I am a good parent. I'm not messing up my children.
Yeah, I found that a challenge. Like, part of me envies my sisters because they're still, in the cult that I grew up in. And they're just like, so sure. They know how to raise their kids. They have their like real book. I mean, for the most part, obviously, there's still stuff they have to contend with. But it's like, oh, this is hard. Well, this is the true way of God. So
yeah,
suck it up. Like, this is just the way it is.
Yeah.
And this is right. This is wrong, and done.
Don't have to think about that
but
anymore.
I have to like think about everything now from the very beginning. Like,
yep.
And you have to find your own confidence, and you have to find your own way, and everything's gray. But I would much prefer that. Anyway.
Oh, it's so much better.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It's more complicated to find your own way than for somebody else to tell you what to do and how to do it and how to think and what's what.
It is. Definitely.
And it's a lot messier too.
Totally messier. I think it's always kind of messy though. Like if you try and like follow a lot of like religious rules and things still explode. Things still like don't turn out the way you think they should.
Yeah.
They still have gay children and
yeah. Maybe they just look like they're not messy.
Yeah. Or all those pastors that are caught with sex workers or, I mean, it's.
Yeah, we're all human in the end.
We're all human. Totally.
Yeah. So what internal beliefs of yours have been the most influential and pushed you through messy times and difficult times and finding your own way? Like, what has been kind of your guiding stars of beliefs?
That's a good question. So I'm a mystic at heart. Like, I believe that the universe is creative and alive and wants us all to flourish. Mormonism can be kind of mystical, and I feel like I definitely got that. As a child, I was taught that my body was sacred, and that, of course, sacred can be like magical and amazing, or like forbidden and be careful. But I think I like took in the magical and amazing part. So like just knowing that my body is this amazing like sensory system that is so intuitive, like is so like connected to this like universal life force, this amazing complex ecosystem of Earth. Like I have the ability to like have my needs met. If I have a question, I can put it out there to the universe and I get answers.
Yeah.
Like I've learned to really tune into my body and really listen to my pussy. And like I ask my pussy questions, like, do we want to do this? Or, like.
So explain that a little bit more, like for people. So what does that feel like, or how do you know what your pussy's saying?
So first it's really just about pausing and tuning into your pussy and like building that relationship. I think a lot of times, like if you're not paying attention, if you've neglected your pussy for years and years and years, you might not even have a lot of sensation there without like, touching yourself, or, it's harder to talk to something you don't have a relationship with.
Yeah.
So just tuning in and feeling like the subtle, like shifts where like the turn on is happening.
Yeah.
It's like little sparks of excitement, like maybe a little bit of like contraction down there, or like little like bubbly, like, ooh,
excitement bubbles.
Yeah.
Yes. So that would be a yes when you feel that. And then how does it feel when it's a no?
You know, sometimes no's are quieter. Sometimes no's are just like, meh. Like, just like, and sometimes no's can be like full blown, like, no way. Like, it's like kind of a lockdown, or like, I want to like stop it.
Yep.
One thing I've also noticed with no's is if it's a no, I'm more likely to go to my head and start like rationalizing it. Like, oh, I should do that.
Yeah.
Whereas like, because the pussy is not going to like give me reasons.
Sometimes she gives reasons. But
sometimes, yeah. But like my pussy doesn't rationalize things.
Totally.
My pussy doesn't like try to like manipulate or like scam.
Right. Totally.
So if my brain's like, oh, you should do that. You said you would, or, you know, you should, like, you're supposed to do that. It's always been the way they expect this. You know, that's your brain like derailing the conversation.
Yeah.
That you're having with your pussy.
Totally. And just to confirm, we're not just talking about sexual decisions, right?
Totally.
Yeah. So what's like, okay. Did you know to tap into your pussy in this way before our course, our certification?
I did, actually.
Okay.
So before we did the coaching course, I was having I was in a period of wild casual sex.
Yeah.
And I always consulted with my pussy. Like, do I want to text this person? No, I don't want to text this person. I don't feel like texting right now. Do I want to go on this date? Mm-hmm. So I'd always check in with my pussy, and I had great adventures.
I did not know how to do that before our course, and it really has changed my life. That was one of the big aha moments with deciding to do this podcast, actually. And my struggles with like social media and realizing, oh, social media makes me depressed and I don't really want to be on social media. And then I just tapped into my pussy about, you know, what to do with my business, basically. Yeah, the reasons my pussy gives is like, yes, because juicy, or yes, because fun, or like, I don't know. Yes, because that's important, or that's deep, or like, this is very simple, like, this is obvious, Phoebe, kind of reasons. It's not like, well, let me list the 20 ways that this is a good thing and the bad thing. That's my brain.
Yes. Yes. And the pussy, like when you feel that inspiration, like it can like go up and like explode in your brain with like millions of ideas and even more excitement.
Yeah. I actually have a video coming out on YouTube on Friday with a guided meditation to meet your pussy.
Ooh, that sounds fun.
Yes. Although I think I had to call it Embrace Your Feminine. A surprising way to embrace your feminine, I think, because like you can't say pussy on a title in YouTube because, you know, you'd get booted off, but that's really what it is. Yeah. Okay. I love that. I love that you brought that up. It's a really powerful way to make decisions.
It is.
It's really a way to be in touch with your truth and what's right for you. And your pussy is such a huge fountain of wisdom in that. Like It's your root chakra, right? It's the root of who you are.
I mean, the whole, like that whole system, I think goes into the sacral chakra as well. Where our creativity is and our life force.
I mean, it's definitely attached to all the chakras too. I mean, I felt my pussy in every chakra, so, but yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Power.
I have like a kind of a random question. What does your sexuality feel like or look like to you? Like when you tap into your sexual being, like, yeah.
Kind of like sparkly and magical, like cosmic.
Yeah. Is it like flowing in your body? Is it like static in your whole body? Is it like in your skin?
I think it flows through my whole body, and it's like what connects me to everything else too.
Yeah. Does it have a color?
I think it would have to be rainbowy.
Yeah. Okay.
And it would like the color would probably change based on like how I was feeling.
Right. I've actually always wanted to ask, there's not a lot of people that are maybe as in tune to be able to say, but mine always feels like it kind of comes up from my pussy, sometimes from the ground as well, depending on kind of where I'm at. But it's like, it kind of feels like, you know how smoke will like come up and there's like tendrils and it's like kind of light and it's gold sparkles.
Ooh.
And then when I get really turned on, it's fire.
Nice.
Like it's definitely like fire is definitely my sexual, I don't know, pattern or something. Yeah. And then it's more when it taps into my creativity and my like juice for life, then I feel like that's more like rainbow blood in my body.
These are good images. I like them.
Yeah, I know. It's always fun to think about, and it makes it a lot easier for me to tap into them too. Having a distinct image of what it looks like.
It makes it fun, and it makes it
that too.
Something that you can like expand out, something that you can experience in more ways.
Yeah.
Because you're using like maybe a little bit of your imagination, like it's something like you can see in your mind's eye. I like that.
Yeah, totally. I find imagery very powerful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
If you were in my shoes, what question would you have asked you that I didn't?
Oh man, it's been so fun. We've talked about so many things.
I know.
I wasn't even expecting to go some of the places that we went. So I don't know what else I would ask myself. Maybe what the next horizon is.
Yes, that's a good one. What is the next horizon?
So the next horizon for me is really getting more comfortable talking about it. Like I've had these amazing experiences on my own, but like sharing them.
Yeah.
And doing like what we're doing now is huge.
Yeah.
And this has been really fun. And so I'm going to hold on to this image because I find myself like being terrified or not making it fun when I think about sharing. It's like, it has to be hard, but I do want to talk about these things more and really put more information out there so that we can help more people.
Yeah. I agree. There's still some things that I hesitate to share about, I would say.
Yeah.
And yet I know that everything we do share about sex and sexuality in public, in places, even in private places for sure. I don't know. It just really helps the stigma, and it helps. Like my hope for this podcast is that people feel less shame and more normal about their journeys, about what they've gone through, about, their quirks, their fantasies, their sexuality, everything.
Yeah.
Just by talking about it, making it normal.
Yeah.
And that So it makes me want to talk about it in public. That's like one of my main driving forces in my life in general, I think. Yeah.
It is normal. It's like the most human thing.
Yeah. In a while, I don't know when exactly, but I would love to have like a round table discussion anonymously with people, because I want them to share things that they wouldn't feel comfortable sharing if they weren't anonymous. Like I want to talk about sexual fantasies and things like that. So
that sounds fun.
Yeah, it'll be good. Anyway, yes. So what is one myth? I have 2 more questions for you. What's one myth about sex or sexuality that you want to debunk?
I think the forbiddenness of exploring things. We as humans are really fluid, and our sexuality can change as we change. You know, sexuality can be really fluid. You can be totally attracted to men and doing that thing for years and years and years, and then like have an experience or like see something and be like, oh, I want to try something new. And I think people need to allow themselves that.
Yeah.
To be fluid, to grow and change.
Yeah. We often have rigid ideas about who we should be sexually, or what it's okay to be turned on by or not okay to be turned on by. And I feel like we take it way too seriously.
We do. Yeah. We want to make everything concrete and like,
yeah. And like,
this is forbidden and this is acceptable.
Yeah. Instead of just playing with it, having fun, exploring everything. Yeah, I agree. I think one of the ones that I would want to debunk the most and work to debunk is that a woman's pleasure is primarily for the man. Like, we're taught that in our culture in a lot of different ways, and in religion even more, maybe, that like it's our job to please him. Sort of end of story, actually.
Yeah.
And like our orgasms are performative to like make him feel good. Which all of that goes out the window when you're with another woman, because, you know, so that's one way to free yourself from that. Which is a good way. Not saying it's not a good way. But I just really want women to claim their own pleasure and to know what makes me feel good. What do I want in this situation? You know, what do I want the sexual encounter to look like? What do I...
Yeah.
And to ask for what they want in the bedroom.
Yeah. To feel like they can ask, and that should be heard. And received. And like,
and if anybody's like,
their wishes should be granted.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also feeling like we all have what we need to feel safe to ask. And feel safe to surrender, because pleasure can be really vulnerable.
Yeah. And for it to be obvious that pleasure should go both ways, and both people should be enjoying the encounter, and that both people should be getting, you know, more or less what they want out of it. Like, that should be very obvious. And yet it's not in our culture.
And also that if I'm experiencing pleasure, like if I'm having this massive orgasm, like that pleasure ripples out. Like my partner also experiences pleasure. You know, the more we experience pleasure, the more pleasure there is for everybody. Like my pleasure doesn't take away from your pleasure or someone else's pleasure or my partner's pleasure.
No. It adds to it.
Yeah.
And it makes it more not only does it add to their pleasure, but it just adds to the experience. It's just more fun. If I'm more into it, then, my partner will be more into it, and it builds on each other.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it when my partner's having amazing pleasure.
Totally.
That's makes me feel good.
Yeah.
One of the things that really surprised me about being with a woman, the first time I was with a woman, when I touched her, I could feel it felt like I was being touched too. So if I was playing with her nipple, my nipple was turned on.
Wow.
Because I had this, because
Cool.
I know what it feels like.
Yeah.
Somebody's doing something to me. So when I was doing it to her, I was I received pleasure from that. It was amazing. Hasn't been as dramatic as that first day, but I still get that. If I'm going down on somebody, I feel that pleasure too.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I love that. Nice.
Helped me give better blowjobs too with dudes. So I was oh, this is just going down on a woman. I know what that feels like. I know how to do that now.
Right. That's cool. It's amazing. I love it. My last question is, what would you say to your teenage self about sex and sexuality? The main thing that you don't want her to know.
I would want her to know that it's hers, that it's not owned by some church that needs to be controlled. It's hers to do whatever she wants with it.
Yeah.
It's her power. It's so powerful. And by forbidding it, it's a huge control mechanism. Yeah. And that she should just enjoy it and have fun and use her sexuality however she wants.
Yeah.
And also, with everything in life, things can be good or bad. We do have bad sexual experiences.
Yeah.
But that doesn't need to be our final experience. And when we have a bad experience, there are things that you can do to heal. So she wouldn't not to be afraid, that something bad was going to happen and that would be the end.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. I feel like as humans, we often, I don't know, we kind of think if one thing goes wrong, then it means the whole thing is bad or wrong. Mm-hmm. In a lot of different areas of our life, we do that. Yeah, instead of just saying yeah, we're going to hurt other people. And yeah, other people are going to hurt us. If I love somebody, they might hurt me. No, they're definitely going to hurt you.
Yeah.
They're human.
It's kind of inevitable.
Yeah. You're human.
And there's no way that we can be ruined.
No. Definitely not. Yeah. And with sex too, it's something might go wrong. Yeah, probably. But most likely it will actually. Definitely. It definitely will happen. You will have bad sexual experiences.
Yep.
This is just part of it. And it's okay.
Yeah. And if you accept that and you're can kind of feel into where your pleasure is and I feel if you're allowing your pleasure, if you're welcoming pleasure and you're on that path, things that are unaligned that are going to be bad, it's going to be clearer. Whereas if everything is a no, then you can't really get close enough to feel the nuance of the situation.
Totally.
And I think you're more vulnerable.
Yeah. And yes, the situations that teach us what we don't want or don't like are just as valuable as the ones that teach us what we do like and do want.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Awesome. So where can my listeners find you online?
So I am on Instagram at Anna Graybill, and I'm also on annagraybill.com.
Yep. Awesome. I will put the links in the podcast episode.
Excellent.
Is there anything else you'd like to say to end with, or does that feel good?
Oh my gosh, this has been fun.
It has been fun. I've loved it. I love this. I'm so happy that I'm doing this podcast.
It's a great idea.
Yes.
This is way better than social media. Way more valuable.
I just love it more. My pussy loves it more. So this is what we're doing.
I like it. I'm here for you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on. I so appreciate it and I love it. I love our conversation. Yeah.
Thanks for asking such good questions.
Awesome. Okay. Bye.
Bye.